Most people only change their course in life when they hit rock bottom. This usually happens when an individual is racked by destructive behavior like drug abuse. But what if a society is engaged in destructive behavior and is about to hit rock bottom in the single largest event in human history? Would you change the course of your life so that you didn't follow the herd off the cliff? I made a dramatic change in my life 7 years ago that has allowed me to succeed where most others have failed. Things were actually going quite well in my life in 2005. I was a 30-year-old millionaire. I had graduated from Boston College and spent 7 years in the Marine Corps Infantry, and I ran a very successful family business. On a personal level, I was the only son, a golden boy that people could always count on to save the day. I was also totally in love. I recently married and found out that I was going to be a father for the first time. Heck, even my investments in business was booming, and the house that I bought only 4 years ago is now worth twice as much as it was then. Things were going very good in my life, actually a little too good. I wondered why things weren't always this good, why others weren't finding the success that I had found, and I decided to take a very harsh reality check on myself and the course of my life. I started to logically question everything that I knew. I wanted to see what was self-evidently true without some sort of mental justification or rationalization. I then asked a question that would change my life forever. What is money? The answer shocked me, and it was the beginning of a rabbit hole experience into truth that I would spend years researching and informing a newer, truer, and more fulfilling reality. I learned that despite the fact that I was very successful financially, I had no clue what money was and why I was successful. I learned that money was not an asset, and that it was actually a debt. This rocked my world because I realized that when debt is created, money is created, and when debt is paid off, money is destroyed. This was the reason why I was so successful. Because in my business, all I did was create debt. In good months, we created a ton of debt, and bad months, not enough. My life and my investments revolved around me creating debts for others to pay. The reason why things were going particularly well for me in 2005 was there was a massive, unsustainable debts being created by a government fighting 2 wars with lower taxes, and in the private economy, there was a massive housing boom. As we all know, this allowed people with no credit to have credit and spend their debt money into an ever-tightening housing market. I immediately knew that this was unsustainable and that this would end horribly for everybody. This new financial reality check seemed counter to everything that I knew and snapped me out of the denial stage of the awakening. I realized despite my education and success, I had been misled on a very fundamental level, and this scared me. If I was wrong about this basic foundation of my life, what else was I misled on, and why, and to whose benefit? I came to find out it wasn't just this one thing I was lied about, but everything else that I had thought was true was a lie. Literally everything. At the bottom of all these lies was a small group of powerful people that created, perpetuated, and profited off these lies. I saw my financial, political, historical, psychological, emotional, physiological, geological, and even spiritual realities turned upside down. This upsetting new reality sent me to the anger stage of the awakening. I was angry because I had been lied to. I was angry because I had risked my life for these lies. I was angry because I was complicit in something that didn't resonate with me. I was angry because if I didn't ask myself these questions, I could have endangered my family's future. Mostly, I was angered that someone knew better and lied to me for their own benefit. I learned at the top of those that benefited the most from this paradigm spread the same kind of debt I did, but with death and on a global scale. I used this anger to fuel an intense amount of research questioning every aspect of my life. I was not going to be fooled again. I read hundreds of books in a very short period of time. I felt like Neo from the Matrix, except I didn't learn ninjutsu. I learned everything from Diocletian to Austrian economics to full spectrum dominance. I would have stacks of books coming in every week, and I would read 300-page books, but only to find a few words even worth underlining. But I knew I couldn't rest until I found some sort of truth that brought me peace. The results of the research I did in the anger stage, and then I saw the housing bubble very clearly, and more importantly, it gave me the confidence to take massive action despite that the world was calling me crazy. I decided to sell my house with a 7.5-month pregnant wife and rent at the top of the housing bubble. I also invested my money in gold, silver, and oil trusts when everybody else thought I was nuts. While I was doing this research, I kept thinking that this information was so incredibly powerful and that this is an incredibly inefficient way to find truth. I knew that not everybody else had the time or energy to do the kind of research I did. I knew that unless everyone was exposed to the same economic, historical, and psychological context I saw, nothing would change. We would never break the cycle of debt and death, and we certainly would never break the grip of the men that created, perpetuated, and profited off of this debt and death. I then even questioned what made me different. What allowed me to spend so much time and energy and pull together a vast amount of information into a clear picture? I took the Young typology test only to find out that I was an INTJ personality. This personality makes up less than 1% of the population, and it seems that I was built to do this. Here's a quote from the description of INTJs. INTJs live in a world of ideas and strategic planning. They value intelligence, knowledge, and competence, and typically have high standards in these regards, which they continuously strive to fulfill. With introverted intuition dominating their personalities, INTJs focus their energy on observing the world, generating ideas and possibilities. Their mind constantly gathers information and makes associations about it. They are tremendously insightful and usually are very quick to understand new ideas. However, their primary interest is not understanding the concept, but rather applying that concept in a useful way. I now knew that I had the ability to pull together a vast amount of information to find a practical solution to humanity's largest problem, the debt and death cycle. At this point, I began to enter the bargaining stage of the awakening. I now embrace my mission to take what I was learning and warn everybody of what I saw. As most of you know, this is by far the most annoying stage of the awakening.
Hey ladies, the Second and First Amendment, get the hell out of my face!
I ruin kids' birthday parties talking about the Federal Reserve, or Christmas parties talking about false flag events throughout history. While I justified my actions as some sort of altruistic gift to those around me, to wake them up, the reality was I was spinning out of control and I was looking for answers myself. I was talking about these subjects. I thought surely there was someone else out there that saw what I saw and that could bring me to some sort of Zen-like peaceful state of truth. No, all I ended up doing is ruining every single relationship I had, trying to wake people up, trying to wake people who embraced their denial stage of the awakening. What started out as a scholarly study of economics and history soon led to darker and more occultic subjects, like secret societies and bloodlines. Every day there was another expert and more fear. Every day I spun from anger to fear to panic back to anger again. 3 years had passed and it was now 2008. The issues now seemed so large and powerful, and I realized no one was listening. That is when I slipped into the fourth stage of the awakening, depression. I was obsessively listening to information that had me hopped up on fear and conspiracy, and that I was burning out on it. I hated it, and yet I could not stop because I knew I couldn't go back to my indoctrinated blind self knowing what I knew now. I had epically ruined every relationship I had trying to wake people up to the reality I saw coming. I failed to have my partners and parents sell their business, as I saw that our day in the sun was coming to a fast end. I even passed on founding a new bank and sitting on the board in 2007. I finally realized that even though my personal wealth was out of the debt and death paradigm, my family's wealth and my career was still tied to this doomed consumer debt paradigm. In May of 2008, I told my father that if he was not getting out, I wanted out. Even though I had millions of assets in my name, I was told that I could leave, but I wasn't getting a dime for them. Here I was spinning out of control with the new reality coming into focus. I knew I was right. I knew I had to get out before those millions of dollars of performing assets turned into millions of dollars worth of debt when the economy collapsed. So I walked away. I walked away from my incredibly successful paradigm. I walked away from my $1 million inheritance. I walked away from my business, my career, my state, my connections, my reputation, my family, my partners, and my friends. I walked away from it all. I did this because I knew I had done enough research and enough reality checks to know I was making the right decision when everybody else told me I was wrong and everything else seemed out of control. I picked up my family and left affluent New Jersey and moved to blue-collar Cleveland. Now depression really hit hard. Now I was dealing with this new reality, with a mortgage, car payments, no insurance, no job, and another newborn baby. I knew I had to get out of this mess, so I started to put all this disjointed information together like a crime scene. I put all the random information I had learned into a narrative that made sense to me. I put ideas in the order that I wish I had learned it, so that it didn't seem so random anymore. When new information is presented in a logical order that builds upon itself in a controlled environment, I learned that it was less of a threat. I put together 1,776 PowerPoint slides of all the information that I had learned. I then returned to the very fundamental problem: how do you reach people in denial through depression? I did this not only for my sanity, but also out of frustration of not being able to convince one other person of what I saw. I realized you could have all the best information in the world, but if no one wanted to see it, it is a waste. I saw the simple reason why our society was so epically misled is that we are indoctrinated into a two-step thought process. This input-output process of information, this is taught to us when we are very little as simply do as you're told. In school, we are given a set of ideas, and depending on how well we regurgitate it onto a test determines how successful we are in that paradigm. This two-step thought process is no different than a computer or a slave. You are told to do something and you do it without question, or you don't get rewarded. I realize this form of indoctrination is very useful for a government, a corporation, or a military that seem to dominate this paradigm. These systems do not want troublemakers who ask questions. The first thing that I realized was missing from this fight for truth was logic. Logic is our freedom from indoctrination. Logic looks at any input unemotionally and asks, what are we observing? Why is it presented to us? Who does this benefit? What is the most likely outcome? How can I best position myself for this outcome? You see, these types of questions free you from just blindly going on through life. This is an incredibly important skill that people have to develop, especially when your life and the empire built on debt and death comes crashing down. Listen to all, follow none. I also saw how this two-step thinking of the indoctrination process hindered me even when I was trying to wake myself up. I would listen to more and more sensational information that was striking fear, anger, and panic in me. When you are stuck in the fear loop, it is very useful for those selling fear, because they never provide you an out. You know you can't go back to the mainstream, you know too much, but you seem stuck in this depressing fear loop that you can't get out of. If you can describe a problem better than your audience can, they will assume that you know the answer and follow you anywhere. Eben Pagan, marketing guru. Everyone seems to describe a problem, but no one offers any real solutions. The reality is, no one's offering logic. Logic empowers people to become independent from the constant fear or fake solutions they sell. That is not good for ratings or profits. It is far better to keep people in fear so they keep coming back and hoard more goods that your advertisers sell. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Vladimir Lenin. Another drawback of the fear loop is that it keeps you hoping for some good guy to come save you from the bad guys you now clearly see. I mean, if there are bad guys out there must be some good guys out there, right? At least that's what I thought. So we're constantly paraded around a bunch of saviors and movements that if we support just hard enough with our money and energy, we will turn back the tide and things will start getting better, or so we're told. The reality is that it's just keeping us in the cage, hoping for shinier bars or better gruel, instead of logically getting out of the cage. This good guy meme is a grand distraction from the reality that no one is coming to save us from ourselves. We put ourselves in debt. We join their military. We work in their corporations. We voted for the lesser of two evils. We watch their TV. We eat their factory food. We use their garbage money. We give our money to Wall Street. We buy their latest gadgets. We empower the system and the men that profit off of it. We simply need to walk away from the system.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
And use our time, talent, and energy to empower ourselves instead of the debt and death paradigm.
You've managed somehow for the last 100 years to convince citizens of this country that you're relevant. But now, just recently, we're beginning to see the tides change on this, and once it catches on, you'll be rendered completely obsolete. The greatest hurdle you'll face over the next 100 years is trying to convince we the people that you're still necessary, in spite of their failures to get the job done. Sure, some will rely on you for handouts. It's what they've always known their entire lives, and they'll be slaves right up to the point of their own destruction. But they don't know any better, and I don't blame them for their ignorance. In the future, you'll not have to worry about million-man marches or citizen journalists trying to catch you on camera. What you need to fear is no one paying attention to you. The next American Revolution will be fought not with bullets and bombs, but instead it'll be one with the opposite consciousness.
Another realization that helped me get out of the depression stage of the awakening was the understanding the historical battle of the collective versus the individual. Individuals throughout history have been sacrificed for some uncaring collective. The collective always concentrates power to a few power-hungry individuals at the top. The collective sells lies to get individuals to sacrifice themselves for their state, their god, or their corporation, always for the promise of salvation from their current condition. Never is the individual told that their condition is bad because the collective is robbing the individual of their time, talent, and energy. When you see that the bad guys in power derive their power off of the lies that get billions of people to actively or passively support a paradigm that is against their individual interests, you start to see that their power is in you. When you realize that you have the power with your energy and thought, you simply need to walk away from things that don't resonate with you, and they will become weaker and you will become independently powerful. When you are no longer fooled into the next scam or campaign that robs you of your time, energy, and money, you become immune to the bad guys out there. You cannot cheat an honest man. You then realize that there is no good guy out there other than yourself, because no one cares about you and your family more than you do. If you avoid danger, you don't need to be rescued, and more importantly, you are now in a position to be a blessing onto others in their time of need. When you get to the point in your life where you're able to sustain yourself without fear of scarcity, the only other joy that you'll find in your life will be in helping others to achieve that same level in their lives. This is real generational wealth of knowledge and real assets, and is the only thing that I see worth working for. When you truly start to walk this path in peace, you will start leading a life of acceptance. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton. I reject that famous quote. It is not that power corrupts. It is that the corrupt seek power. There are only two kinds of people in this world. Those that want to be left alone and those that won't leave you alone. The bad guys you clearly see are people that just won't leave humanity alone. They spread debt and death throughout the world by selling lies to get billions of individuals to control others. But it is also the people in your life that make you miserable. When you truly understand this, you realize that the only good guy is in the mirror. You are the only one that cares about you, and everyone else is out for themselves. Only you can be immune to the outside manipulators by becoming educated and developing your logical skills. The worst part of any collective organization is that the most power-hungry and willing to do the most unsociable thing always rise to the top of any collective organization. This allows them to concentrate power and wealth to the few aggressive people at the top. This collectivist system is a fundamental reason why we're in the mess that we are in. Look at the quality of our politicians and CEOs, and I bet that you would not trust any of them to run your family business, or your personal affairs, or even watch your children.
Before, I have no recollection whatsoever. The real answer is I don't know. I really don't.
I then stumbled across a 4-step process that I did to become free of the manipulative and controlling environment I used to live in. The most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Stephen Biko. The first thing I had to do was use logic to rid myself of toxic thoughts that either kept me down or stuck inside of the paradigm. We are our own worst enemies. We hold ourselves back from a greater life with our negative thoughts and lack of logic. We are also our best cheerleader. When you have the confidence in thought and in action to do whatever we put our mind to, this is a battle of our consciousness. We have to decide, are we going to be that free-spirited child full of curiosity and fearlessness, or are we going to be an abused person full of doubt and toxic thoughts? Once you have control over your thoughts, you are able to have the confidence to get rid of the toxic people in your life that probably put those toxic thoughts in your head in the first place. These people are hurt people that seek to control others. They are the ones that you dread getting the call from. They are the ones that have nothing good to say. They are the ones that you have to walk on eggshells until you find out what kind of mood they're in. They literally suck the life out of you, and the only way to deal with them is to shun them. They cannot be rationalized with. They will never seek help because they know it all. You simply need to disassociate yourself from them immediately. There is another benefit to this. You will naturally find that you are surrounded by other happy, positive people who will support you and care for you. This is a huge turbo booster in your detoxifying process, as you will be much happier and freer to take on more challenges. The third step is to get rid of toxic investments, which in this paradigm are debt-based paper assets that are loaded with counterparty risk. I cover this extensively in the Silver Bullet and the Silver Shield, but essentially every single paper asset is based on an unsustainable Ponzi scheme that is about to collapse. And worse, they have no intrinsic value. The only value they have is the ability of a counterparty to pay. When this collapse happens, people will learn that counterparty risk is the most important term nobody talks about. You need to put your wealth in real tangible items that are valuable because of their usefulness. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. The final step of ridding yourself of a toxic life is getting rid of toxic careers and efforts. This is when you stop enabling those that seek to enslave you with debt and lies, and you start doing something that has real tangible value to others and resonates with something deep inside of you. This is when you can do something that resonates with you and you find happiness in providing real value to others. You will start seeing that work is actually fun. Another problem I saw in the awakening process is that everybody's talking about right now, and no one's talking about the context of what's going on. How many articles and interviews do you really need to hear about what Ben Bernanke is doing or going to do? What is missing is the context of what powerful money manipulators have done in the past, and that they are following the exact same playbook that is millennia old. If you don't understand the history of currency destruction and what it does to societies, and the people who profit off of destroyed societies, Most people will pass off current news as some sort of Charlie Brown teacher talking. I felt that if I can make the awakening process more formalized, it could provide the context for what's going on in the news today. And it would help speed up the conscious awakening that humanity needs to go through to break the debt and death paradigm, so we can stop repeating history. I also understood that another roadblock in the awakening is that no one likes to be told that they're wrong. This is why so many personal interventions fail unless people hit rock bottom. I felt that if I could organize the information in a logical way where people could learn without an assault on their ego, the truth stood a greater chance of being heard. People are far more likely to watch a video on their own time when they're ready than an ill-timed personal intervention. I also felt small videos broken up into single thought elements, put into building a logical order, would be the best format. So I started to build the Sons of Liberty Academy. I started to enter the final stage of the awakening, which is acceptance. When I clearly saw the reality that we were living in, and accepted it for what it is without emotional attachment to it, I became more of an observer of it. By knowing where the story is going, and knowing how to best position myself and my family for the end of this story, you can actually start looking forward to the paradigm shift instead of fearing it. When you reach the acceptance stage, you realize that you don't have to save people, because you can't. You realize that you don't have to push your ideas onto others, because that isn't really no different than those that seek to manipulate others with their propaganda. You have to be of the opposite consciousness on every level of your life. You need to walk away from the paradigm, withdrawing your time, energy, and money to defeat the debt and death paradigm. Another benefit of walking away is that it's much more effective waking up people. If I push you, you're going to push me back. When you push your ideas on somebody, they're going to react defensively. It's natural. But when you reach the acceptance stage, you can walk your path in peace. And all those people who would not listen before, that are stuck in denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, will finally stop and ask what you've got going on, and how you made yourself so peaceful. Only then, when you have made this full awakening journey, can you be a blessing unto others. Only then can humanity start becoming its highest and best self. So here I was with all this powerful information in the Sons of Liberty Academy. It had 48 hours of video lessons tying together all the historical, financial, philosophical, moral, and even spiritual problems of humanity, and providing a clear solution for humanity to go through the 5 stages of awakening and reach the level of acceptance that I have found. The Academy is an intellectual assault on the debt and death paradigm, and an intellectual foundation on a more sustainable and resonating paradigm. I consider this my life's work. Now all I had to do was get the world to see it. In order to do that, I had to take a leap of faith. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Thomas Jefferson. When I left New Jersey, I was very lucky to find a 6-figure job as a director of operations for an internet marketing firm that specialized in helping investors invest in foreclosed property. The information we taught did not personally interest me, but I soon saw how information could be marketed. I felt my information was vastly more powerful, and it had allowed me to make millions by avoiding the housing and stock market collapse. So I decided to sell my Sons of Liberty Academy. I was mildly successful selling the Academy, and the responses from those that had joined have been overwhelmingly positive. I've never had one person ask for their money back, even though I've had a 90-day money-back guarantee. I even had a grandmother buy 5 Academy memberships for each of her grandchildren. When I contacted her about the order, which I thought she had made in error, she told me that she loved it so much that she said that it was the greatest gift she could give to her grandchildren. I said thank you, and I even said that she could simply have given her kids her password, but she said that I deserved to be rewarded for all the effort that I put into it. While I was happy with the response and the money it was generating, something was gnawing at me as it was not right. One of my biggest supporters wrote me at the exact time I was feeling this gnawing feeling. He came to me about this crazy idea of just giving the Academy away for free to everyone. I had 6 years and $30,000 invested in this Academy, and he wanted me to give it away for free. This is what he wrote. Believe in yourself. The USA needs the Sons of Liberty Academy sooner rather than later, or I'm afraid this great country will take a serious turn for the worst. I truly believe what you have to say could make the difference in giving our country and our Constitution a chance of surviving what is headed our way. I then asked myself, what is the quickest way to spread an idea? Give it away for free. After all, that is exactly what the elite do in their mainstream media. I knew the Academy had tremendous value and is by far the best weapon against the elite. The Academy destroys all the deceptions the elite use to enslave us. It leaves no stone unturned, and it is the most comprehensive plan to turn around the world. Giving the Academy away is the best way to get the message of freedom out to as many people as possible while we still have time. I then spoke to another Academy member who is a military contractor that was currently working in Afghanistan. He told me the Academy saved his life. He knew as soon as he went through it, he could no longer do what he was doing, knowing what he knows now. He told me that he committed inhuman acts while justifying it that he was supporting his family. But now he saw he was ultimately enabling the elite that would seek to enslave us all. I told him that was the sick and genius part of the elite system. You become so dependent on the system, you actually defend the system. Even though I had been brought up in a very shark-like mentality environment, and I swam very fast in that environment, I knew that I had to walk away in order to give myself a fresh start. I walked away from millions of my family business for 2 reasons. First, I saw that the business was going to collapse, and 5 months later it did. The second reason was I wanted out of my shark-like mentality that was so pervasive in my life. I literally walked away from everything to make a fresh start. My business, my family, my contacts, my life, all to move to rural Ohio and start a new life with my young and growing family. The real change for me came from leaving the shark mentality and entering into this new mentality of abundance. The abundance mentality is about giving your all, and you will receive far in excess in return than you could possibly gain in being a shark. It took me 2 years in this new life to really sink in and embrace this abundance mentality. So one day I took my leap of faith. I quit my 6-figure job that I was lucky to get in Cleveland, Ohio, and give away my life's work, which was the Sons of Liberty Academy. What would you have done in my shoes? What if you had something so special and you spent so much time and effort on, would you give it away? I guess the real question is, what would you do if the American Revolution started tomorrow? Would you answer the call? Would you leave your comfortable world to step out into the unknown? Would you do the right thing even when everyone else is telling you don't do it? Would you expose and endanger yourself so that others can have a shot at really living? Zbigniew Brzezinski recently did a speech about how the elite fears a massive global awakening.
I'm deeply troubled that a very vague, emotionally stated, semi-theologically defined diagnosis of the central global menace is obscuring our national ability to comprehend the historically unprecedented challenge which is being posed in our time by a massive global political awakening, and thus is obstructing our ability to deal effectively with the global political turmoil that this awakening is generating. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
How cool would it be to almost overnight break through to millions of people all over the world and infect their minds with life-changing ideas of freedom? To be able to show the entire playbook of the elite so that no one was ever fooled by their games again. To show the world the crimes against humanity by the few elite that control our paradigm. To be able to systematically and speedily take people through the 5 stages of awakening. To teach people how our debt money system is a rigged game and not to play with it. To give away the blueprint of a leaderless resistance. To really hack at the root of our problems, our thinking. So I took my leap of faith and made my entire life's work, the Sons of Liberty Academy, away for free on a member site at sonsoflibertyacademy.com. My hope is that more people will join and see the tremendous value and how it can change their life. Ideas don't happen on their own. Throughout history, ideas need patrons. Even though 30,000 people have successfully joined the Sons of Liberty Academy on its private member site, I will now be releasing the Sons of Liberty Academy videos on YouTube every day. You can join the Sons of Liberty Academy at any time at sonsoflibertyacademy.com and see the full 48 hours of video lessons and hundreds of supporting documents at sonsoflibertyacademy.com. You simply have to enter your name and email, and then click the Gandhi link for free and full access to the Academy. Register a new username and password, and you can start right away. If it is something that you like or find interesting, recommend it to your friends and family. It's free.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.